While Fontaine has done a fantastic job of bringing new life to the game, burnout remains a common topic in the Genshin community. I don't have Genshin burnout and still enjoy playing it every day. However, I've talked to a lot of people who do, or who aren't enjoying the game as much as they did during the early days, but they're always very reluctant to stop. Why is that? Are there ways to avoid it? And is it ever too late to quit Genshin? While each person's experience is unique, from what I've seen, these feelings tend to be a blend of several things. Let's take a look at the most common factors, how to change perspective on each of them to help rekindle the love for Genshin, and walk through one feature which can help people more easily make the decision to take a break, and why that can make it easier to come back and enjoy the game later on. When talking to people who no longer enjoy the game but keep slogging away at it, it seems that the most common reason for them to keep going is the fear that they would have wasted their time. This is a particularly strong feeling in people who played with a purpose in mind. Maybe they wanted to experience the main story of the Archon quests, or beat the endgame content, or explore the entirety of Tevat, or even get all the achievements in the game. It can take months to achieve those goals, but once people do, they tend to feel like they're in a kind of limbo. They know that future updates would bring more of the parts of the game that they enjoyed the most, but until then, they're stuck, and the driving force which really made them want to play is just out of reach. When they think about quitting completely, it can be natural to look back at the hundreds or thousands of hours they've spent chasing those goals and feel like quitting would mean that all that time and effort was for nothing. It's easy for something to feel empty when you focus on these kinds of accomplishments. Many games are designed to keep you on a treadmill where they constantly dangle the next reward in front of you, when really, if you think about it for a minute, the rewards are all fairly empty. This can be particularly stark in Genshin because so many of these goals are things where the moment you have reached your goal, the game is suddenly empty in comparison. Achieving 100% exploration in a region can feel great, but the moment it's done, you know that means the region's now completely empty of things to do, Hoyo's frustratingly inaccurate percentage counting notwithstanding. I probably feel this the most when building characters. I love planning how I'm going to build someone, imagining how I'm going to play them, figuring out which teams they'll enhance or unlock, and taking the time to get their equipment right. Once a character is completed, it feels very satisfying, but the moment they're done, I'm eager to jump to the next project. People falling into this trap are really just focusing on the wrong thing, and this is a problem which is common not just in gaming, but in society as a whole. People put great emphasis on goals and achievements, on big moments like graduation or a wedding, when really the important parts of life are the times in between. College isn't about getting a certificate or having your name read out loud in front of a crowd. It's about studying, learning, meeting people and making friends, growing as a person, and maybe even contributing to the world's knowledge. Relationships aren't about a sharp suit or a white dress and a beautiful ceremony. They're about finding things in common, supporting one another, working and growing and making a life together. Games are just the same. Yes, many people get enough of a high from reaching those goals that it can feel like the main event. But for most, the reason they play games is that they enjoy the journey. As long as you're not neglecting the rest of your life, spending hundreds or thousands of hours playing a game is not wasted time. It's what life's about, immersing yourself in something that makes you happy. So whenever you look at the number of hours you've spent playing any game and feel a sinking feeling in your stomach, take a deep breath and try to remind yourself that it's okay to enjoy yourself. Another very common trap is for people who have spent money on the game to feel like their money would have been wasted if they quit. If you play Genshin for any period of time, it's pretty easy to rack up the spending. The game has many systems in place which are designed to push people towards spending. After all, it is a gacha game. I've often talked to people who are burnt out but feel obligated to continue because they've spent hundreds or even thousands of dollars on the game over the course of the years. Whenever this comes up, I cannot help but think about how much people spend on more traditionally acceptable hobbies. Think about simple pleasures like eating at restaurants or watching a play at the theatre, following a sports team, or even just going for a night out with friends. All these things are considered perfectly normal, and it's commonplace for people to have discretionary spending budget of hundreds per month to spend on these things. And that's not even thinking about self-destructive yet expensive habits such as smoking. It's incredibly hard to compare the cost of different leisure activities, but whichever way you cut it, gaming in general is ridiculously cheap, especially when you really fall in love with a game. I paid something like £50 for Red Dead Redemption 2 and spent at least 3,000 hours playing it. 3 full playthroughs, including every challenge and trophy completed for the offline portion of the game, plus countless hours playing online. I could have spent that £50 on 1 ticket to see a play, 3 hours of entertainment instead of 3,000, and few would have thought it a waste. There's definitely some value in the magic of live events, but the point here is that I would disagree that one is more worthy use of that money than the other. Of course, games like Genshin are a little different since the sky is the limit for how much you can spend on them, but let's look closer. Many whales will have spent thousands of dollars on Genshin over the course of the past couple of years. If they've played as many hours as I have on my main account alone, they would still be looking at having paid maybe $1 or $2 per hour of playtime. Even something comparatively cheap like cinema tickets are more expensive than that. It just goes to show how insanely economical gaming actually is as a hobby, and really put some game monetization strategies into perspective. It's always important to spend responsibly, and gacha games are designed to make it easy to go past that point, but as long as you're not, say, stealing funds from your fanzine and funneling them all into your Genshin account, anyone who feels tied to the game because of the amount they've spent in the past should try to break that down into what they paid per hour of enjoyment, since chances are it'll all boil down to a very reasonable price in the end. Once you break it down like that, it's a lot easier to walk away. After all, you'll always have the memories. Finally, probably the most common case is people who are emotionally invested in the game but no longer get that same joy. The experience of playing a game like Genshin for the first time can be absolutely mind-blowing. The beauty of the world, the intricacy of the combat, the hours spent roaming the world, finding hidden treasures, uncovering mysteries, meeting characters and hearing their stories. It's so easy for people to well and truly fall in love with this game. Over time, that experience mellows out a bit, locations become familiar, combat becomes less challenging, and you slowly work your way through all the content. Everyone's experience of this is of course unique, but it's inevitable that the feeling of discovery will wax and wane over the course of your time playing Genshin, and many people find themselves still playing every day not because they enjoy doing so, but because they remember those times of discovery and desperately want to recapture them somehow. Again, this is something which happens to people in all parts of their lives. To go back to the earlier examples, many people head to college and are enthralled by the new experiences at first. They get the first taste of freedom, they make new friends, start their studies, but then it becomes their new normal. The downsides start to be more obvious. Freedom is great, but you have to do all the things for yourself. Friends are awesome, but friendships aren't always smooth sailing. Learning can be fascinating, but it's a heck of a lot of work. There's always going to be a difference between the idealized version of something and its cold, hard reality. The trick is to remember what sparked your imagination in the first place, and put in the effort to keep that spark alive, even when you're faced with the parts that aren't so shiny. So if you start feeling like Genshin is losing its magic for you, try to think back to what it was that made you love it in the first place. Once you figure that out, it can be a lot easier to rekindle that joy. For example, if you miss the days when ruin guards were a daunting challenge, do your dailies with no artifacts equipped, or come up with some other interesting restrictions which would make the gameplay feel much more interesting for a while. Often, the magic isn't gone, it's just a little harder to reach, and you can find it again if you can figure out where to look. And if you can't, that's okay. People change, and things don't have to last forever. It's often better to put a thing to rest and cherish the memories than drag it out and tarnish them. And who knows, if you leave it long enough, you could come back in a year or two and find it all the content waiting for you might recapture those early feelings. And as a bonus point, one common complaint, even amongst people who don't want to quit, is that Genshin's content comes in waves, and the lulls between the peaks feel very long. Often, this is a self-inflicted problem. For example, people who love either exploration or quests tend to zoom through their favorite content as quickly as they can whenever a new patch drops, and then find themselves starved for content for weeks, until the next patch comes around and the cycle begins again. If you find yourself falling into this trap, try to slow it down. It's not a race. The new daily commission system can actually be a perfect way to manage this, since both exploration and quests can be used as an alternate to the regular commissions. You can use this as a guide of how much you should play each day. For example, I often do a little bit of exploration each day, just enough to fill up the commissions meter. Having a clear point at which to stop makes it a lot easier to step away from the game, and spreads out my enjoyment of my favorite parts of the game over weeks instead of days. So, what if none of that has helped you and you're still not enjoying Genshin? How can you actually take that step and take some time away from it? Generally, the strongest reason people feel obligated to keep coming back every day is the rewards you get from completing dailies, events, the abyss, and so on. The thought of missing out on those, regardless of what other things are draining your enjoyment of the game away, can be painful. The best way to get past this final hurdle is to make use of the Stellar Reunion event. Stellar Reunion is a special event which appears when you return to Genshin after 2 weeks of inactivity. The event lasts 2 weeks and provides various rewards for doing different things in-game, including up to 500 Primo Gems and 5 Fragile Resins, plus some other benefits like double drops from ley lines, similar to a ley line overflow event. While these rewards are significantly less than what you would get from doing your dailies and keeping up with the events in-game, it's a fairly reasonable portion of what you'd get normally. For a lot of people, this can reduce the fear of missing out and make it much easier to take a break. The best way to make use of this is to look at the upcoming events and pick a 2-week period where the event rewards will probably be underwhelming. You can then stop playing at the start of that period and take care not to log in whatsoever until the 15th day. Take the time to do other things, get some perspective, maybe even touch some grass. And either you'll come back fresh and ready to enjoy Genshin again, or you'll decide that you're ready to take more time away. And since you would have already taken the first step to break the chains, that would be easier too. 2 weeks is a long enough time that you can really let yourself feel separated from Genshin, and often that little bit of distance is all you really need to be able to rediscover the parts of the game which made you love it in the first place. Live service games tend to do everything in their power to keep people coming back, to the point where it can become a detriment to your enjoyment of the game. Breaking that manipulation is an essential step to deciding whether there's still something there which will bring joy to your life, and even more important for those times when you reach the conclusion that you're better off stopping completely. Letting go is hard, but life is short and you shouldn't spend your precious free time playing a game which you don't enjoy. If changing the way you play can help recapture your love for Genshin, then everybody wins. But if the spark is gone, it's better to look back on it with fondness. Meanwhile, I still love Genshin, and while I don't regularly play as much as I used to, that's mostly due to time constraints as well as having too long a list of games to keep up with. Perhaps even if you do quit, you can still experience that feeling secondhand through my videos. I've had that happen with a few games I stopped playing but still consume content for. And maybe once enough time has passed, you'll feel the spark again too. Until next time!